Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman, and I am here with my friend and trusty producer back from vacation, Max Kerman. Max, what's going on?
I'm about to go on another vacation, so you have me for a moment.
You're the man of vacations.
Yeah.
But you're not the only one here with me today.
This is special.
This is special.
I couldn't be more excited.
Joining us in place of our regular pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham, who is on a cruise somewhere in the Caribbean with his wife and extended family. We are joined by Shane's favorite person and probably his choice to replace him on this episode, The Nut.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we thought it makes sense because, you know, the last two episodes, I feel like you've featured pretty prominently.
Yeah, all very flatteringly as well.
We had to send it to you for approval, and I don't know if we took any of your notes, but they're up on the internet now.
It's the thought that counts. Yeah.
Well, and because right now, Webmaster Dan is Insta-storying this episode, and Mike, you told me you need to let Shane know that the Nut is filling in for him this week. Yeah. Because, you know, if he sees it on an Insta-story, he's going to be very upset. But I hope this is no sound, Webmaster Dan, because I want you just to put Shaney Boy 69 has been replaced by the Nut. From here on out, executive decision by producer Max.
He's going to
go nuts on that boat.
Yeah, ironically.
He's going to throw himself
really
over.
Yeah.
All I said was, listen, Shane's our brother in arms. We've done more than 80 of these with him.
And you were like, tell him. He's going to be upset.
I said, just give him a courtesy message. Tell him that the Nut is coming on this week.
And I did not. Anyway, Shane's been on vacation for like 3 weeks.
It feels like a long time.
Like on a beach or on a cruise. Like it seems like that's the only thing I know about him now.
His Insta story is very enviable.
Yeah.
Not really. I'm glad he's gone.
Oh, classic Nut.
No, it's great to be here. This is swank offices you have here. This is exciting.
Here at 299.
Yeah.
This is actually a brand new boardroom.
You always be selling.
That's it.
The brand expert.
The magic.
Good. He's good at buttering
the magic
people
of
up.
much. No, it's great.
So guys, today on the show, we're going to get to him in a bit, but we have Commander Chris Hadfield, Canadian legend.
Repeat guest.
This is his second time, his return to the show. And for those of you listening, if you're hearing this before the 11th, Commander Chris Hadfield is doing his big show Generator at Roy Thompson Hall. So get tickets, man, if they're still out there. Also, the man is hitting the road. He's in Washington. He's in Hamilton, our hometown, London, Ontario, Southampton, UK, Manchester. Dude's all over. So if you're listening in any of those places and you want to see a Canadian legend, Commander Chris Hadfield, performing and doing his thing, check it out and do it. We're going to get to him in a bit. What else has been going on? Max, like you said, you just got back from vacation. You're going on vacation again.
I just had a coffee from Hot Black down the street. Shout out to those guys. Best coffee shop downtown, I think.
I don't drink coffee, Max.
I know you don't. You're an easy, it's one of those things when you text, hey, anyone need a coffee? I can always count on you not to drain my wallet.
That's the best.
Nah, I don't want
Nah,
one.
fine.
Yeah.
You guys both drink coffee?
I'm a T-man.
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 T-Pain.
Okay.
I remember you used to play on a boat back when you were DJing at Absinthe.
I did do that.
And you wore the captain's hat.
I did look good in it.
You did.
That was my shtick. Yeah. I peaked then, but it's fine.
And what was your catchphrase? You tell all the patrons that were dancing to your DJing.
I'm not going to get into that.
We're sending you home in a body bag.
You're going home in a body bag.
Yeah, I was essentially like one of those carnival guys that just like, do you want to go faster? But hey, it worked at the time.
It was a big Gravitron.
That's it.
I puked on one of those at a Hamilton County fair. Yeah.
You shouldn't have maybe went faster. It's all right.
I know. Well, yeah. There was a guy like you with a captain's hat that was riling me up.
Yeah, see.
All right, Max, back to your vacation, my friend.
Okay. So I was thinking about the break and just things that happened to me over the break because we haven't really had a chance to talk. We have, but there's some things I've been saving for the pod. How was your Christmas? Everyone had a good Christmas?
It was lovely.
Great.
Lovely. So my sister has a little baby boy named Kai, but also has 3 stepchildren who are ages 6, 8, and 10 or something.
Oh, classic uncle.
Yeah. And I've come to, or something. And I've come to know them over the last few years, and they're awesome kids, and I really love them. And I really want them to just be happy and live a great life. And I try my best to spend time with them and stuff. And so, I was thinking, what do you buy kids for Christmas? You have young relatives, right?
Yeah.
Because my roommate Greg, your brother, always has to, around this time of year, on the 24th, he's like, shit, I gotta go to the mall.
Around the 24th.
Around the 24th.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and then he's like, I gotta go to the mall. What does a 10-year-old like? I don't know. And then he's like, okay, maybe I'll just call Mike. And then he just calls you.
He does. Yeah.
Hopes that you've bought something already, and then he can put his name on the card.
Well, so for years, this was actually a point of contention. For years, my brother and I would just always give joint gifts. So it was always like from Mike and Greg to our cousins, anyone like that, we would always, and to our dad and to our Oma and to everybody. But then, you know, once Danica came back into my life and she was, you know, my partner going forward, I didn't think it would change. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, throw Greg's name on there. And she was like,
and Greg's like 33.
yeah. And she was like, you know, and I was like, what? She's like, I don't know. Like, do you think at some point, like, it'll just be from you and I?
And Greg can figure it out for his
And I
damn
was like,
self.
I didn't think about that. She's like, you know, he has like a full-time job and he's a grown man. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I never thought of, and you know, I guess him and his girlfriend can like give a, all right, let me talk to him about it. So, but I was kind of dreading the conversation because my brother's usually not the most understanding. And I was like, hey man. And he was like, huh. I see how it is.
You've left me for your wife.
Yeah, classic Yoko coming between us. He's like, enjoy giving those gifts to everybody from you and Danica. So now we do separate gifts. But anyway, yes.
I think this year, though, he somehow finagled being involved in yours, or he still wanted some scheme where he didn't have to do as much and we would just take care of business.
I can report that we discussed what we were going to get, but he got all his own gifts this year, on the 24th, apparently.
Yeah, so anyway, I hate going to the mall, and I don't like buying. I'm just so bad at like buying anything for anybody. I always f it up somehow. So I was like, oh, maybe what I'll do. And also it was the 24th and I hadn't bought anything yet. So I was like, oh, I got it. I'll write them a card and I'll say, this is good for a trip to the mall with Uncle Max to buy some piece of sporting equipment, you know, to encourage them being active and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of cool. And also to have an opportunity, because they like spending time with me. So it's an opportunity to kind of hang out or whatever, make it special. But I was like, you know what? I want to say something really meaningful. So I kind of like thought about like writing something kind of sweet to like each one of them. Like, hey, Lex, like you're a real special guy. We're so proud of you. Just like really kind of being sentimental. What I learned is kids don't give a shit about cards.
They don't care. They don't care at all.
Because I really was stressing out, just sitting at home trying to perfect the perfect like 3 to 4 sentences for them. And then on Christmas morning, there's like tearing through shit.
Did not read that card.
And then at one point I was like, so Emma, did you read the card? And she's like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, and then just ran away.
You were even looking for a review on your card lyrics?
I was hoping
at this point.
kind of.
3 out of 5 stars from the junior
I don't
writer.
interact with children ever really. So if you write a nice card to an adult, to like your girlfriend or to your friend, or you send a nice email to somebody.
I've never done it, but I'll take your word for it.
Have. They go, hey, that really means a lot. And there's this sort of like, you know, selfish thing about the nice thing that you just did, right? So anyway, if anybody's...
It's like when you send like a good email and you go back and you reread it to yourself a couple of times, you're like, damn, I nailed that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Whoa, what a closer. That was a great closing line.
I nailed this email.
So anyway, don't write anything nice to kids probably until they get to the age of like 26 or something.
Don't be nice to kids.
No, be nice to kids, but a written message isn't really going to get you anywhere.
Right.
So number 2, speaking of sort of coming of age, there's been a few moments in my life with like really close friends of mine that have sort of been transformational, where it's like, wow, things are really changing. Like this is the next chapter, right? So I remember when I was a teenager, one of my best friends told me that he like lost his virginity. And I was like, and I'm sort of like a sentimental guy. I'm like, wow, we're not kids anymore kind of thing, right?
And mildly competitive, so you're like, when's my time?
Not even. I was just like, I was sort of embracing being a kid or something. I wasn't as horny as you, Mike.
What? You knew nothing about me. I was way hornier than you might think. No, I'm just kidding.
Mike's like, I had that conversation when I was 9. I was telling everyone. It happened again when one of my best friends told me he was getting married. I was like, oh man, we're not just fucking kids anymore. And the same thing happened when... which one of our friends had kids the first?
Jug.
Yeah, I think when Jug said, oh, we're having a kid, I'm like, wow. You were kind of really hit me.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I remember you being like legitimately pissed when Jug said that he was having a kid, because you were like, you've ruined the group.
I wasn't going to say
the
this.
fun is over.
That's how I remember it
like
too.
You literally threw a fit and then had to get your shit together.
It's over. Yeah, it took me a while to say congratulations.
Yeah, you were like
it
literally
your sense of what we are and how we can proceed.
Yeah, and then I have to be reflective, and I guess times are changing. So anyway, I had a similar moment over the break. I was at a dinner, and I was sitting next to Sean Dawson, our friend Sean, and we're just kind of having a very casual conversation. And he goes, oh, so yeah, Nick's tattoo's pretty crazy. And so Nick, the bassist in our band and one of my oldest friends now, has been talking about getting a tattoo since first year university, since I met him. I remember walking across Dundurn Bridge in Hamilton, Ontario, and him going, oh, I love tattoos. I'm going to get a tattoo definitely by the time I'm done 4th year. And I was like, yeah, right. And Nick's like kind of a mama's boy like myself, but he's also a contrarian. He'll say he's into something that I don't think he's actually into. So the last 10 years he's talking about, getting tattoos or whatever, and he's never got one. I just never thought it would actually happen. But it happened. And it kind of gave me that weird feeling. I'm like, whoa, times are changing.
He finally got that tat.
Yeah, but I was thinking about it more, and I was like, I wonder what. And it's a really nice sentimental tattoo. It's about it's a place in his hometown, London, Ontario, where he and his brother and sister used to play and hang out. And I was like, oh, maybe it's because he's in a band and he thinks because band guys got tattoos and. I mean, not just band guys. Every person has a tattoo right now. But
you might be the last one.
I might be the last person who doesn't have tattoos. In this room, I'm the only one of the four of us. But he has this friend named Dr. Mike Son, who we play baseball with.
I love the doctor. Who's
an awesome guy and like a quintessential kind of Simpsons loving nerd, that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he's also Nick's role model. And he's I think he's a professor. He teaches and stuff like that. And so I've come to the conclusion the main reason why Nick got the tattoo isn't because of all the band dudes he's been hanging out with for the last 12 years. It's because of a baseball stat loving nerd, Dr. Mike Son, who has 6 tattoos. So it's if Mike Son can have 6 tattoos, I might as well get one.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a moment for me over the break. But shout out to Nick's new tattoo.
Nick is getting more and more hunky. Manager Ash and I just almost daily will just send each other photos of Nick from the internet because he's gotten super. He's by far the hottest Arkel.
He's always been very hunky.
Yeah, but he's and he does this thing too. Maybe it's been talked about on the pod too, where he talks. He goes, "All I'm doing is not drinking," but that's absolute horse shit.
Yeah.
He literally is ripped. And maybe this is just the next evolution of him evolving from a caterpillar into this hunky butterfly.
And he's single.
Hunky butterfly.
Yeah,
he's single right now. Hunky butterfly.
That's what I think of when I see butterflies. Ooh, that is a hunky butterfly.
In a couple of years, that butterfly's gonna be really hunky.
I'm telling you.
But actually, I think he's single right now. He's always a little mysterious when it comes to his situation. But I've been saying,
Max, I got a tattoo and this is my new wife.
It's whoa, things are moving fast.
And we're having a baby. Max is like,
my head explodes.
Think of all the nice things you could write in that wedding card, though.
I know. Oh, I'd get into it.
Have you read the card yet?
So, just frothing at the mouth. Have you read the
Ugly
card?
crying at the wedding, hoping he's read the card.
But anyway, so I texted him immediately in a group text. I said, Nick, ... Do you have something to tell us? Because he hadn't told us. That's the other thing about Nick. He's kind of mysterious.
Oh, about the tat.
About the tat.
And this is a group chat with your band.
With the band and Manager Ash.
Yeah.
And then Nick just responds with 3 question marks. And then I go, a new development in your life? ... And then he goes, I don't think so. Question mark. And I go, something you can't take back? And then Tim chimes in, you totally can though.
with laser removal?
Yeah. So anyway, sweet tat for Nick.
Shout out to Nick.
Shout out to Nick.
It's definitely a new year.
Definitely a new year. And the last thing I want to talk about, where are we at? How much time are we at?
Hey, let's keep going, man. This is loose, baby.
Okay. A few other things. I'm watching a lot of movies. Actually, the Nut and I went to a movie together. Double date last night.
That's great.
Wow. What'd you guys see?
We saw 3 Billboards.
Oh, we can't talk about it because Danica and I are going to see it tomorrow.
Go now.
Highly recommended.
Just don't.
No, don't say anything more.
It's good.
Great. It's great.
All right. I've seen a lot of very good films this year.
Yeah.
Would this be at the top of your guys'
Top
list?
of the list.
Big time.
And I mean, so now we're building up too much. I had no expectation going into it. Anyway,
Okay.
I love
All
it.
right.
You did say last night that Mike gave you a shit movie recommendation.
This is
He
what
was
I want to
furious
confront you about.
Oh, wow. Confrontation.
So
it is a new year.
So Lauren and I, based on your recommendation, watched A Ghost Story.
Yeah.
And that is a terrible movie.
Wow.
That is a piece of garbage. And I know that people love it because you are in the majority. 92% of people on Rotten Tomatoes love it.
I can't. What didn't you like about it? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but Max was furious about it.
Okay, spoiler alert if anybody wants to see this movie. But basically, Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara in a relationship.
Yeah.
And then they have about, 3 lines between the two of them in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then Casey Affleck dies.
It is called A Ghost Story.
It's
Go
called
on.
The Ghost Story. And then for the rest of the movie, he's walking around literally with a bed sheet on his whole body with eyes cut out and just sort of back into the house where they live.
That's what a ghost looks like.
That's what a ghost looks like. It's a very literal
You
interpretation.
ever drawn a ghost?
And then it's literally 40 minutes of silence. Rooney Mara is just sad eating pie for 6
Okay, that
minutes.
scene is polarizing. It's a 5-minute scene of her eating the pie
heard this.
and grieving. But what is grieving, Max? What is the nature of being alive? What is the nature of what we care about? Where are we going as a species? What do you hold dear? What can you hold on to? What do you take with you to the next plane? These are big existential questions, Max, and the movie is a meditation on that.
Man, meditation.
Wow, that's heavy shit.
Yeah.
I like fart jokes and people get hit in the nuts.
Sorry,
That's my
a
kind
lot of
humor.
fart jokes.
Hey,
3 billboards.
I love a good cry. You saw me at the MLK movie.
This is so Max and Lauren and Danica and myself decided to go on a double date a few years ago. What was the name of that film?
Selma.
Selma. And obviously, the famous movie about the civil rights movement and everything. And there's the scene where they sort of tragically go across the bridge and the police sort of decide to unload and make an example of these protesters, and they start beating them on the bridge. Very emotional scene. The movie's very good. And so the 4 of us are in the theater and we're watching, and I just start hearing during the scene, and Danica kind of looks at me, and I look over to my right, and it's Max, and his face is sopping wet with tears, and he's bawling, like he's really empathizing with these protesters, which is very sweet and speaks to your empathetic soul. But you were crying so loudly that I was like, "You're taking everybody else in the theater out of this scene, bro."
You also did that yesterday because there's a couple, like, it's pretty like dark humor kind of movie, 3 billboards, and there were several times where Max just on his own laughed out loud, like belly laugh, but it had such a great reaction where it made the theater erupt in laughter. So it was like a canned laugh track in the movie. It was awesome.
So sometimes my sound effects work, sometimes they don't.
It worked. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm into loss and pain and sadness in a movie, but just not 40 straight
Silence.
minutes of silence in a 7-minute scene of her eating pie.
Did I recommend it directly to you?
I know. I think you said it in a group.
In a group, because I don't know if I would have
I'm not
done it
actually
directly
mad
to you.
by that.
No, I know, but I pride myself on knowing what. If I recommend it to you and you hated it, I apologize.
No, but you know, and I think all of our friends know, especially with me, like what my tastes are.
Yeah.
Because if it's like movies, like everyone knows, oh, Max isn't gonna like that.
Totally.
More so than I think the average person would know about each other.
And Mike, you've never steered me. I ask you all the time for movie recos and things.
Right.
And you've never ever steered me wrong.
Because I know specifically the stuff that you like.
Yeah.
You know? So
Okay,
anyway.
let's get to Hadfield.
We getting to Hadfield?
Let's get to Hadfield.
Look at the producer producing.
Calling the shots.
All right, guys. Today on the show, we have Commander Chris Hadfield. He is returned to the show. He was a guest pretty early on. Gave us a lot of great time in the beginning when we didn't have a ton of guests. And he came back. And he's promoting his big show, Generator, which again is at Roy Thompson Hall on Thursday, January 11th. So again, if you're listening to this on Monday, which I must say, one of the reasons that we are recording this and not waiting for Shane to come back from his
Because we
lovely
love the
cruise.
nut. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Is because we love the nut, and also because we wanted you to get out and check out that show with Chris Hadfield, because he's very passionate about it and spreading sort of the idea of learning and the things that we can do as a people to advance society and things of that nature. And he talks a lot about that in the interview, and I think that's why he's always such a fascinating conversation.
Did he recognize you from last time?
Good question, Max. So I went and picked him up over in the radio area, Talk 1010 or something like that. And he comes out and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he introduced himself, and I can tell kind of right away. And again, he does a million interviews, right? So I don't take it personally whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So then we start walking toward Greg Stewart's office to the interview, and we're walking through the bridge to 299 Queen Street. And I said, actually, you've been on the show before, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And I could tell he still didn't totally. Then we get into the interview. We start going. We start getting into it, which you will hear. And then at the very end, he says, I 100% remember you. Mm. And then he basically said a lot of kind things about the interview style, which I will take out of the interview and not leave it in.
Hey, producer Max says, we got to brag about it. This is what we've learned from the open is, self-promotion. No, leaving it.
We're leaving in the end piece?
We're leaving it in.
Max, I insist. Okay, we'll leave it in if you want to. Okay, so guys, we're going to get to Commander Chris Hadfield, and after the interview, come back for desserts featuring
the nut.
Can't wait. Let's get to it. Check 1, check 2. Let's get a quick level.
How close do you want this microphone?
You're golden.
There, be okay?
It's great.
How long are we going to talk for?
20 minutes.
Okay, great.
Is that all right?
Oh, yeah, it's great.
So, yeah, Generator.
Yeah, it's an interesting project. What do you do when you've had extremely rare and thought-provoking experiences, and then they finished? What do you do? What do you do with that experience? What do you do with the ideas? What do you do with the things that it made you think, how it inspired you? You could just, keep it to yourself. Or, that'd be forgivable, of course. Or you could try and write about it or play music about it or something. But there's also sort of the inspiration of, wow, this inspired me to look at the world differently. I see things differently. I want to understand the process of invention and how we get to where we are. And I want other people to sort of share some of the things that come from it. And that was very much the whole background of starting Generator. This is our 3rd year, and we've sold out the last 2 years, which is great. But the idea is put people on stage that you wouldn't normally see. There's musicians up there, and they're Tupperware Remix Party. They're terrific, and comedians. You know, the evening is entertaining, but at the same time, put people on stage that make you think or make you go, "Wow, I didn't even know that was going on," or "Holy cow, that is happening in our city here right now," and let people come away for the evening feeling not just, you know, amused and delighted, but also sort of curious and with a renewed desire to understand what's the new stuff that's going on around them. And that's why Generator has been so successful. That's why I'm looking forward to it this year. We got a really cool lineup of folks.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned sharing ideas across sort of cultural and intellectual spectrum. And it's like, is there anyone in particular, like I guess in your professional life, where you learned something from someone outside of your field that changed the way you think about and evaluate ideas?
I try and do that all the time.
Does anything stand out though?
Everybody is expert in something that you aren't. Everybody. And,
sure.
And so, you know, even a 5-year-old knows stuff that you don't know. And so it's good to try and give yourself the time to learn from other people. There's this artist named Ortner. He paints huge seascapes, like where the surf is crashing to shore. And I was I was at an event where he was speaking and I was speaking. And I wouldn't normally, you know, I like going to galleries. I like looking at paintings, but I'm not a painter. But he brings light into a painting that I don't know how he does it. Like it looks like it's backlit or something. And yet it's just the way that he has mixed the paint and then put it on this huge screen. And he can work on a painting for 6 months, but the result is something you almost feel like you're inside the painting. And when I see something like that, it raises all sorts of question marks in my head. How is he doing that? How does he see it? He and I can both stand on the shoreline and look at the surf crashing. He's not seeing the same thing I'm seeing. What's going on inside his head? So I've spent an evening with Ran and trying to, and I'm never going to be able to do anything like he does, but a little peek into his world changes my own. And that, I think, is important.
Yeah. When you started this, I believe, with your son, Evan.
It was Evan's idea, and Evan is he was the one who had the whole idea to do Space Oddity in orbit, and then he and his buddy did the editing of the video at the end of it, Andrew Tidby. But Evan's doing a series on YouTube right now called Rare Earth that's doing really well. Ideas from around the world. Go to a place and talk about something that you would never think that is in that part of the world, and then look how it reflects back on your own perceptions of things. Rare Earth. But yeah, Evan and I talk all the time about this idea of what do you know? How is it that you know what you know? How did you get to where you are? What's happening around you? And then how could you propagate that into the future? And how can you think about your perspectives changing with the things that you learn over time? So yeah, Evan's a really good creative force. He's like a lot of creative people. You have to almost change your thinking when you're talking to them because they're seeing the world differently than you. But that's what we need. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm always fascinated by the idea of parenting in some ways, especially when you're a very prominent person. You have sort of this rock star job. You know what I mean? And being an astronaut, having children, being so visible. How do you approach parenting? Meaning, like, is this an impossible standard to live up to? Is that something you think even crosses the children's mind? How do you approach that? Of course, I just see myself like I've always seen myself. You know, nobody's famous in their own backyard, and I didn't suddenly change just because more people learned my name or recognized me in the street. That's just normal for me. But it definitely puts a different load on my kids than maybe somebody else's kids. That's what I'm getting at, yeah. If you look at it through my kids' point of view, if they succeed, well, they succeed because their dad's an astronaut. If they don't succeed, well, why didn't they succeed? Their dad's an astronaut. It's kind of They can't just be who they are. And all three of them have treated it differently. One moved to China, and he's lived there for 15 years, and that's one way to just like, okay, I can just be who I am.
Yeah.
And he's doing fine over there, and he's married and has our granddaughter. My daughter is a university professor, and she has sort of just decided anything that smacks of nepotism, anything where it looks like I'm getting a special deal because of who my dad is, I'm going to reject. I just want to make it on my own merits. And she would even though she's got the same last name, she never advertise. And that's the way she deals with it. She works very hard on just getting there through her own skills. And she's doing superbly. She's a psychologist and a university professor. Evan is in the thick still of supporting what I'm doing, but also creating who he is. And there are advantages to being an astronaut's kid. Of course, obvious. You get access, you have some name recognition. You may lose some of your individuality. I mean, if you're Neil Armstrong's son, or I don't know, William Shatner's daughter,
Sure.
you know, or you're Dean Martin's son, you know, everyone's going to go, oh, well, you're not particularly interesting, but your parent is, no matter who you are.
It's always the first question in a conversation.
Right. And it kind of diminishes who you are. And so Evan, even though he's extremely creative, has great ideas, is educated, is smart and interesting, he definitely has to deal with that as just being part of life. But at the same time, all three kids are doing fine and finding their own lives and successful. And all I've ever tried to do as a parent is give them opportunity, give them confidence, give them education, and support them in the things that they're pursuing so that hopefully they can be happy and successful in life. My wife and I try and do that. And like every parent, it's imperfect.
Sure.
You sacrifice the good intentions on the altar of reality all the time. But we're very proud of our family.
Yeah, that's a fascinating statement. The good intentions at the altar of reality.
Yeah.
I like that. Music is a big part of your life now. And I guess compared to sort of the unique scientific sort of work that you're known for, how does music compare as far as fulfillment?
Some of the best moments in my life are when there's really something complicated and interesting happening around me and I'm right in the thick of it. When I was a fighter pilot flying F-18s, intercepting Soviet bombers who were practicing cruise missile launches on North America, to be there with one other F-18 pilot and his airplane intercepting out there, doing something that could have huge repercussions, that required a lot of skill, that had all of this happening around me. It was hard, it was challenging, it was everything I could do, but it was also really interesting. Flying a spaceship is like that, where there's huge result if you don't do things right. There's a big effect to your decision making. It's really hard. It's something you studied for. It's something you've gained skills for. But while it's happening, it's so stimulating. And to me, music is the same. Some of my favorite moments are when I'm surrounded by the band, and we're either practice or on stage, doesn't matter, and we are creating something. We're playing a song that we wrote or somebody else wrote, doesn't matter, but we're playing it live. We're inventing this song as we're going. We're playing it different than anybody else has ever played it and will ever play it. We're in the act of creation together. And all those silent signals, when I'm looking at Mickey, the lead singer in our band, or the harmony singer, or lean over, look at the flute player or the strings player and have them pick up a lead and watch them invent and create and have it all happen simultaneously. It's some of the best little moments. I look around with such fascination inside the moment. And to me, all three of those, whether you're in the Air Force defending the country, applying your skills, whether you're exploring the edge of understanding on a spaceship, or whether you're inventing things musically, artistically, there's a real common ground to all of them.
There's like a collaboration and a math to music, and there is, in the same way that you're finding those things.
Yeah. And they all require a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
And to get to that point where you have the skills to be able to thrive and succeed at this thing, and then as a result of it, do something that otherwise there's no way you could ever do that.
Does music get you there? Is it on par, the same?
Music absolutely gets me there. Danny Michel and I, as a result of this Generator show, wrote an album. We recorded it on a ship on an old Soviet icebreaker way in the high Arctic. And we just debuted it with the Vancouver Symphony. And standing out in front of the Vancouver Symphony, I had images both of space travel as well as Canada's Arctic up on the big images screens behind me. The whole symphony playing the orchestral scores around us, and then telling the stories through music. And it is so multifaceted at the time, almost multi-sensual. You're seeing it, you're thinking about it, you're imagining stuff that you hadn't been able to imagine before, and it's somehow being explained to you musically. Like you're getting it in a way that you couldn't get it any other. And that, I think, is what really gets me there, is when you can have music explain the world to you in a way that nothing else does. And sometimes you're just playing, Right Said Fred, and it's just for fun.
Sure, you're having a laugh.
But sometimes music is like a key that you're turning, and I love those moments when they come along. They're hard to predict.
Sure.
But yeah, it's we've had music longer than we've had written language. We found musical instruments from over 40,000 years ago, from the caves in southern Germany. Music is ancient, and there's a Canadian guitar up on the space station right now, and Scott Tingle, who's up there, he's a good lead guitarist.
So he's rocking it?
He's an engineer and a test pilot and an astronaut, but he's up there also trying to understand where we are a little bit through music.
I heard you mention in the last interview that if there were a project to put people living on the moon in the next 10 years, you'd be thrilled to work on something like that. If it was that or being on the road every night touring with the band, which one does Chris Hadfield pick?
Touring every night with the band, my experience has been most places people want you to repeat something you've already done. They want to hear your greatest hits. No one wants you to get up on stage and say, "I'm about to play a bunch of music you've never heard before."
Innovate for the first time.
I went to the Bare Naked Ladies just did a cross Canada tour. I went to their big show here at Massey Hall, and they played predominantly songs people knew. A few of the new ones, which is nice. But when you're on the road, people, of course, if they have to buy a ticket, they sort of want to know what they're getting, and therefore they expect you to repeat something they've already heard, which is fine and normal.
Yep.
You don't go to an art gallery to watch an artist mix paint. You go there to see finished paintings. Space travel's different. There's a lot of stuff that is repeat. That is the mixing paint and the stuff you've done before. But the purpose of it, every single flight, is to push back the edge of what we understand, to take us further out into the unknown than we've ever been before. And it's really hard. And the stakes are so high. I mean, people die doing this job, just trying to understand the universe better, trying to understand the world better, trying to push our technology, just like the sailors used to do in history, or the explorers on foot, or the first Canadians that came here, 18,000 years ago. A lot of them died just trying to push the edge of what we understand to improve their quality of life. And to me, space travel fits into that. So I think you should always have music with you wherever you're going, but it's where you're going that really matters.
Yeah. You mentioned things we understand and don't understand. I'd read this story recently, I'm sure you read it, about this program the United States was running, studying UFOs, from 2007 to 2012. And there's a lot of headlines about this sort of alien alloys. And so now that I have you here, I kind of wanted to ask somebody who maybe have some thoughts on this. What does that mean as far as what we don't understand? What kind of discovery is that? It means what? These are these metals that are not, they're foreign to our Earth?
No. There's all sorts of overexcited reporting of people who've done almost no research,
this is what I'm
who
getting.
want
Okay.
to be able to now say something absolutely revolutionary. And everybody wants, I don't know, it's normal human behavior. I don't really care what happened 10,000 years ago. A little bit, I'm curious about it. But what really matters to me is my 80 years on the Earth.
Sure.
I want this to be the most important time in all of history, just because then I feel a little more validated in being alive. I don't want I don't want my life to be wasted or to be nothing. And so that's why people hold up the signs that say the world is ending. Because if the world is ending, then I'm special.
It happens during your time.
Yeah, because it happened while I was here.
Sure, okay.
Or whatever. That's normal. People are looking for significance in their life. And so if you see something in the sky, like recently over LA, people saw this blue glowing light in the sky. And CNN called me and said, hey, we want you to talk about the glowing light in the sky. Oh, I'm like, well, no. And it was just the Navy had launched a missile out of a submarine. They were testing an engine. It's just the engine of a rocket, and it's at night. But people didn't expect to see it. So immediately they fantasize that it's life from another galaxy, or it's aliens, or it's a movie, or it's it's not. It is just because you can't identify it doesn't mean it's magic. It just means maybe you don't understand it. And that when we say unidentified flying objects, UFOs, just because you don't understand it, doesn't turn it into intelligent life from Saturn or something. I wish it did. And that's why we explore and we're looking for life. We're driving rovers around on Mars right now. 4 billion years ago, when life first developed on Earth, and we found fossils up on the shore of Hudson Bay from 4 billion years ago, the earliest life form that we know of. 4 billion years ago, Mars was a lot like Earth. It had oceans. It had an atmosphere. It was early in its stage, and Earth was a seething mass. Didn't have a blue sky then. We didn't have an oxygen atmosphere. They were very similar, and life developed here. So maybe life developed on Mars back then. They've had very different adolescence and adulthood since, and we're very different planets now. But that's why we're driving around Curiosity and Opportunity and Spirit on Mars, is to try and understand, is there life there? Or one of the moons of Saturn that spews water out and feeds the rings of Saturn, Enceladus. Maybe there's life on that moon, because it, of course, sort of looks like Earth did 4 billion years ago. We are trying to answer that question, but I don't think it's going to be answered by people who look up into the sky, see a weather balloon, and go, I have no idea what that is. I think that's here to give me a secret message.
But specifically the foreign metals, is that?
I don't know. I haven't researched them enough. Just like pretty much everybody on CNN, I haven't researched them enough to be able to speak authoritatively.
Sure.
I can speculate, but in speculation, if you're just speculating on your own, that's fine. But if you're broadcasting speculation, I think all you really do is feed ignorance. And you're far better to do the research and recognize that if you have a public voice, you should speak from a position of informed authority and not just whip up ignorance. And there's a lot of ignorance whip up going on, and I don't think it's good for us. Well, yeah, well,
and that ends up being the motivation.
I understand people need to earn their salary, and you got to convince people to stay on their channel or buy their magazine or their newspaper, and that's all fine. But the consumer should be a little more discerning, I think, and use their own intellect and recognize that what separates us from toads is that we have a real complex capability to think and to visualize things that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
And don't just go with the easy gut reaction to complex ideas. Actually do the work on your own and have your own creative thought. To me, that's the best part of being a human being.
Yeah. You talk about, us being here right now in this point in time. And we touched a bit on this the last time you were on the show, but, like the political climate around the world feels sort of more volatile than ever. Maybe that's recency bias. It does seem different this time. Not that I'm super old, but
I like that term, recency bias. I like that. Yeah.
I guess, how do the geopolitics of the day sort of affect the community of scientists and the people interested in space exploration?
Well, I think, number one, we need to remember that I'm older than spaceflight. It's new. No one had flown. There was no such thing as an astronaut when I was born. No one had ever flown in space. All the space exploration we've done has happened since I was born. This is a brand new thing. So it's easy to be impatient with it, or to wish the technology were going faster, or to wish whoever the current political figures are of the day would somehow give us the right amount of money that we could do magic. But that's not how things proceed. There is always a tug of war between taking care of the people, the short-term problems, the societal problems, health and welfare of everybody, building the infrastructure, but also exploring and doing research and building laboratories and understanding and improving the technology around us. Go back 15 years and think about iPhones and GPS and tablets and what the internet can do right now, the cloud and artificial intelligence and machine intelligence, we all sort of just look around now as if that's normal. It's so new, we've hardly taken the wrapper off it. And yet it's hugely integrated into our lives. And for the most part, it's improved the quality of life. We've never fed as many people on Earth as we did today. We've never had as high an average quality of living as we do around the world today. When Canada was formed in 1867, the average age of death was 40. Average. Half the people died by 40 years old. And that's our country in its short little time of existence. Now it's, in the 80s, and almost everybody makes it to 65. So that quality of life improvement didn't happen magically or by accident. It happened because we took care of people today, but we worked really hard on inventing technologies that could take care of people better in the future, pushing back the edge of what we understand. And that's still going on right now. And there's lots of political hubbub, and some of the easiest reporting in the world is to just report about what somebody tweeted today.
Sure.
That's lazy, predictable, easy journalism. And it's seductive. And of course you would. Why wouldn't you? But meanwhile, there is incredible stuff happening. And in universities that are pushing back the edge of our ignorance in our ability to communicate, our ability to share thought and to travel around the world has accelerated the pace of invention like we've never seen before. Smart, capable, motivated people can share ideas in a way that's never happened in human history in the past from all around the world. Something somebody said to me recently I think about often is, it's never going to be this slow again. Just because of the way that we've invented things. And you can't just finish school and think that I now have enough information that will carry me through the rest of my life.
I'm done.
The pace of it, but 100 years ago, the pace of invention was slow enough that as you became expert at something by the end of school, that the change was going to be slow enough that knowledge base would allow you to work your whole life with an expectation that the things I still know when I'm 65 are going to be good enough.
And relevant. It's fascinating.
But that pace of change has outstripped the human lifespan. You have to continue to be a student if you want to stay competitive. The stuff you learned in high school and university, if you go to university, is going to become old much faster than it used to. But access to information and education has never been easier as well. So yeah, you can get all wrapped up in blame of whatever this prime minister or the last prime minister or the prime minister before him or whatever, the things they said. And yeah, that's important. And their decisions do affect life. But at the same time, the vast majority of us are doing something different and wrapped up and pushing back the edge and doing things. And there are some folks inventing and creating that is, it's just like, it's like watching a fireworks show to me of ideas. And that's what we need.
And that kind of progress can't be stopped.
Right. And so when I take the experiences I've had, that's what I'm most interested in. What are we doing next? How are we taking these ideas? How can we take all of these things that we've done and improve the quality of life for as many people as possible and make it sustainable? I think that's really kind of a fundamental mantra that I look at every day. It's why I did a Canada 150 tour across the country. It's why I do Generator on stage, to put ideas in front of people, to let people recognize not only the pace of change, but their opportunities within it. And you don't just have to be a spectator. You can be part of this. And there's so much capacity and opportunity for that now. It's a really interesting, enabling time. Just have to, see that that you can be a vital part of it in your own little piece of expertise.
Thanks so much for your time, man.
Nice to talk to you.
Likewise.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I remember very clearly talking to you before. You're such a good interviewer.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I've done a lot of interviews over the years, like a lot of people you talk to, and I know how it feels to talk to a good interviewer. So thanks for being good at your job.
Welcome to the dessert. I gotta say this is a little weird for me because our Papa Culture aficionado, Shaney Boy 69, is not here.
Not weird for me at all.
And sitting here in his place is his friend and sometimes arch nemesis, the Nut.
Love you, Shane.
So we're so glad to have you here. But right before we get to the dessert, I gotta say, because I forgot to do it off the top, if we're being honest, we sold out the f***ing I Sang for Lupus show at the Rivoli.
Huge.
So, and by the when I say we sold it out, I mean you guys bought tickets and sold it out. This is phenomenal. I always say this shit's humbling. Shane says it makes him want to brag. It doesn't make him humble at all.
Yeah, it makes him cocky.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I just feel we're so grateful. Thank you so much to everyone who bought tickets. We are so excited to see you guys on January 19th at the Rivoli.
And we're working on a special guest, so stay tuned for that.
Announcement soon for the interview portion of the live show. Again, everything we made on ticket sales goes right to Lupus, so we are happy that you guys supported a good cause, and we are, of course, very excited to support a good cause.
But it's making me think, because the tickets went so fast, maybe we do another show, say in Hamilton, and we just take all the money. Right?
We're going to get rich.
Take this thing on the road.
Let's hit the road, y'all.
The road.
But yeah, so we will see you all on the 19th. And like I say to Shane, I'm going to turn to the Nut and say, what do you got for us?
Max wanted to talk about fitness and New Year's resolutions and things like that, which feels appropriate because Shane has made a life of making fun of my weight publicly. So it feels
And his
like
own weight, to be fair.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, like Shane making fun of him, how he looks. Like I don't like to give him a lot of credit, but he's an attractive man, that Shane Cunningham.
Yeah, he's fine.
And then he went and married up somehow too. So it's just like literally like the most attractive couple on the planet talking about his physical blemishes. Like that's bullshit.
That's true. That's very true. So, and I wanted to get into this a little bit because, well, one, it's the new year, and this is the time of year where everybody buys a membership to the gym and says it has New Year's resolutions and says this is the year I pull it all together. And I went to New Orleans with Lauren and her family before Christmas, so we kind of indulged there. For Christmas, you eat a lot of food. We had lots of dinner parties, Christmas, New Year's Eve. It was just a lot of gluttonous activity. So I was like, I need to turn my life around. I saw the transformation the Nut has made in the last few months, and everybody's complimenting you.
It's great.
On your new
you
look.
went from a walnut to a peanut.
I appreciate that.
Good job. So I want to ask you about your transformation.
Yeah.
So when did it begin? How did you get there? When did you say, I'm going to get in shape?
Well, you kind of started it to a degree, because I think it, like Mike, like Max has gotten Max has never been big, but like as you get like show ready, I guess like you've really like sort of shrank down.
Instagram has made me a lot more aware of my looks, because you have to look at yourself a lot more. Back in the day, I never really looked at myself.
Yeah, and like just like being around you, especially on the road, you'll like you eat like very specific things like pita bowls, and then you're like, here, have a handful of nuts before we go to dinner because it fills you up, so then you won't order as much at dinner and things like that. Yeah,
little tricks that I sometimes follow. Sure.
Yeah, so like there's there's that kind of thing. So, you were sort of inspiring, makes you think like, okay, like it's not totally impossible. And then our friend Dan, Ice Cream Sandwich Dan, has like gone off the deep end with like this sort of radical approach to nutrition and fitness. And he was just like, he's like, here's what you got to do. All you do is if you just eat meat and only meat, you'll completely lose weight in a short period of time. And like, yeah, right. Like go yourself. Like Dan has a very unique, like his life is a bit of a fantasy world in a sense. But he's totally right. I literally Dan became my life coach. We tried twice. If you fail first, you can try again. But we started with like a bunch of supplements and stuff. He was like
supplements.
Big time.
Are you on supplements right now?
Yeah, I don't do anything.
Like he would supplement vodka for beer.
Yeah, I've actually not drank more in my life than I have in the past 3 months, because like my life's falling apart.
Dan's got you on.
Well, like personally, my life is in shambles, as most of the people at this table know. So I've definitely been drinking more than I should be. But it's
a real podcast,
right?
Folks.
But well, if I'm going to be in Shane's chair, I have to be as honest,
It's
even to my own detriment. But literally, like if you literally just eat meat and nothing else, you will get completely thin.
So, and you're also on this 100 push-ups a day.
That's a Dan thing as well.
And 50 sit-ups.
That's right. Yeah,
you do that?
I did 20 here. Like so, Dan.
I wonder I thought you were just trying to impress Webmaster Dan.
Well, Dan is sexy, so any chance I get to show off to Webmaster.
So
Dan,
you'll be at work,
really
and you'll
laying
just
it
like
on.
go into the break room and do 20 push-ups.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll be right right back and I just got to make a call. And then like I go into a meeting room and I close the door and I do like 25 push-ups in the dark. And then I come in, they're like, why is your face all red? Like, and then I just like,
It was an emotional call.
yeah, the ruse is up. My God, I was doing my push-ups.
So, so basically all you've been eating is meat.
Yeah. So essentially, if you just, I'll try to be like as like non-funny for a minute, but just like if you avoid sugar, so like no grains, no candy, no pasta, no dairy. I cut out dairy. I literally eat meat and vegetables. There's probably should be a disclaimer like talk to a doctor or like read a book.
Well, I'm gonna
or
get to
something.
this.
Or
Yeah.
Dan Hamilton.
Yeah, or Dan. Give out Dan's number. But literally, that's I literally eat in like red meat and vegetables only,
So,
and I occasionally starve myself.
yeah. So this is, so
I'm going to make a call 2 weeks later. He hasn't eaten anything.
Well, I got back to the office today for the first time in 2 weeks. I'm like, one of the women in the office is, I'm like, oh, hey, Jazz, Happy New Year. She's like, you're looking gaunt. I'm like, oh.
and then dude, were you like secretly
I
really
loved
happy?
it. I loved it for sure. Yeah.
Oh, stop it.
yeah. Oh, you.
So, and you were saying, but you have this feeling of just like, I'm dominating you.
Yeah. No, like, yeah.
Like your willpower.
Yeah, totally. Well,
You feel in control
Totally.
in a way
Well,
that you never had before.
That's right. Especially because most of everything in my life right now is
been
off
hanging
the
out with you
rails.
with a decade,
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's just like to be able to like control something that you haven't been able to. It feels really good. And like literally, you know, like Shane has Shane has cast me in as Jonah Hill in skits for much, right? So it's you know, my weight's been a bit of a challenge, and to finally feel like I have it under control a little bit feels pretty damn good.
Well, kudos to you because you do look good.
Thank you.
Now, talking to Lauren about this. Now, Lauren is a health practitioner. She is in school for nursing. She's been very healthful her whole life. Her family's generally pretty healthy. And she is a vegetarian. And so for me, listening to this advice, I couldn't quite follow it because when I'm basically a vegetarian at this point. And I was talking to Lauren about the new Dan nut diet.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, but like, sure, they might be like losing weight, but his insides are probably rotten to the core.
Ben said this about me?
Not you specifically.
Like my soul or
Your
like my
personality.
organs?
Not your soul. She loves you as a person.
Okay.
But just your insides, like, you know, which was an interesting thing to think about because a lot of people who are also very healthy live on this plant-based diets, and they talk about the nutrients you get from just kind of strictly vegetables or non-processed food. So I think there's definitely some overlap.
Dan Hamilton would fight Lauren, I think,
know.
physically, because he tells me that grass-fed beef is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. So take that, Lauren, you know it all.
Yeah, well, you
Why
know
not
what?
skip the beef and just eat the grass?
'Cause it's not as tasty.
All right.
No offense to any of the vegetarians. This
I'm
is a
just
bit of a
trying to throw it out
hipster
there.
show, so I'm sure there's lots of them out there.
Sure, it's true. So the other thing is that I was like, but you know what? I'm going to try to do this thing starting January 2nd because January 1st we went to Eastside Mario's and I had to have the bread.
Oh, the boss is
hey,
coming.
bada boom, bada bing.
Bada bing.
Your former employer.
My former, same spot too in Dundas, Ontario.
do they welcome you back? Like
No, none of the same staff are there. And it was pretty quiet.
They all started bands too and are touring.
Yeah, that's right.
That's terrible.
There's something about that east side.
I
in,
love. Please don't cut
Dundas,
that.
man.
That's a funny joke.
So I was like, but we're not going to eat any sugar, and that includes bread and stuff like that. And we're just going to eat sort of like whole foods, but in our case, no meat. It'll just be vegetables,
Yeah.
basically, and eggs. Dairy's okay. I know you're not eating dairy,
Yeah,
but we're eating
Dan eats dairy and eggs. Dan loves
Yeah,
eggs.
Dan loves eggs. And I gotta say, the last few days have been fucking terrible. Like, oh my God. It's just like, I'm literally like a drug addict and weaning myself off
It's crazy.
sugar. And there's been these times where like, I'll try to eat a lot, like a big thing of like eggs and vegetables and like for breakfast, and I'll fill myself up. But then once I get hungry, I fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
And I start peaking. And then Lauren goes, you know why? It's because you're addicted to sugar. I'm like, that's not what I want to hear right now. And I just like stare at her. And we've gone into so many fights over the last few days. But then we'll both eat and we'll feel way better and then we'll be human beings again. So this has happened for the last 3 days. Like we get into like 4 arguments a day where I'm just like, just give me a granola bar. She's like, it's processed sugar.
Yeah. But I also have a hot take or a hot tip for any, this might work for women, but I can only say for sure that works for men, is if you don't want to eat well or exercise and still look thinner, blow dry your hair.
I think they do blow.
No, don't do blow. That probably works. I don't do blow, so we'll have to ask somebody that does. But if you blow dry your hair, you get a little extra height.
Blow.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of blow.
Lots of blow. So if that's the one thing you take away from this, lots of blow.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you so much to Commander Chris Hadfield for coming on and being our guest. Thank you to The Nut for filling in for Shane Christian Cunningham, our pop culture aficionado.
Filling in.
Replacing?
Anything to say to him before our big show on January 19th?
I'm bringing the heat, Shane. I like it.
And the meat.
You can find the Mike on Much podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Follow us at Mike on Much. Leave a comment and ratings in iTunes. It helps the show grow. And tell your friends about it. If you like an episode, put it on your socials. Do it. Huge thank you to Jenna Gregory, Tara Paquette for providing the artwork and putting it all together.
Thank you to everyone that's helped us all through 2016, 2017, and will be contributing to the pod in 2018. People like Webmaster Dan.
Big round of applause. Yeah.
Of course, Justin Stockman, our patron saint. People like Greg Stewart, people like Sarah McLaren.
Mike McShane.
Mike McShane in the house. So many people. And, they don't get a shout out, but a lot of the people that mix this podcast every week. People like Matt Spears and Elizabeth and Danny. There's so many of them, and I'm going to get a big list of their name, and we're going to say them next time, but they're this unsung heroes that have to sit through an hour of our bullshit and make it sound listenable for you guys. So thank you to the mixers who have been doing this for a long time, and I hope everybody has a great 2018, and we'll see you on January 19th if we don't die on the weekend.